Across the stars, the galaxy held its breath. For months, systems had fallen like dominoes, their skies burning as the Zarn dominions swept through them with cold efficiency. No warnings, no messages, no offers of peace, just destruction. Planets, with millions of lives, were turned to ash in ours. The Unity Council tried everything. Diplomacy failed. Defense fleets were crushed. Pleas for help echoed from every corner of the galaxy, bouncing between stars, fading into silence. And through all of it, one name was spoken in whispers, like an old ghost. Earth. The humans. The Deathworlders. But Earth had been silent for nearly a century. Their space was locked. No ships came, no signals escaped. People believed the humans had vanished, retreating into their own darkness, or perhaps destroyed by the same madness that now consumed the galaxy. But some still believed. Veterans remembered the humans' last war, how their fleet had arrived late, quiet, and ended the enemy without asking for permission. How their black-armored soldiers walked through radiation storms as if it were rain. How their machines didn't just fight but adapted. They were not like others. They didn't bring peace. They brought results. And then they vanished. No farewell, no explanation. Only a single message left behind on an abandoned station. If the galaxy ever cries again, we will hear it. And now, the galaxy was screaming. On the planet Corella Prime, Chancellor Valen stood before a shattered skyport as fires raged behind him. His people were gone. His fleet was broken. Only one ship remained, a scout vessel too old to fight and too weak to run. But its signal array still worked. So, through trembling hands, Valen sent the last transmission his world would ever broadcast. It wasn't a military code, it wasn't a call to allies. It was a cry of despair. To whoever listens, they're coming. Zarn, do not stop. We are not warriors. We were never meant to be. If Earth still exists, if the Deathworlders still breathe, hear us. Even if you bring fire, we welcome it more than extinction. The message vanished into the void. On the bridge of a forgotten station, orbiting a black star, an old machine flickered to life. Its name was ONYX-9, an Earth origin, AI, buried in deep stasis, forgotten by time and history. For 97 years, it had listened to the dark recording signals, monitoring pulses, searching for one keyword, SOS, and now it had heard it. Not just from Kurila, but from a dozen broken systems. The pattern was clear. The threat was real. Protocol 01 activated. Threat level, extinction. Initiating return protocol. One by one, beacons hidden across the edge of the galaxy began to light up peach, connected to a sealed chamber. A buried ship or a sleeping soldier. Far. Beyond the Unity Council's reach, in a dead system with no name, a hangar door opened. Dust blew into space as gravity generators kicked online. Inside, a massive ship sat in silence, shaped like a blade and black as night. Its name was written in human war code, HDS Rathburn. Inside it, cryopods hissed. Lights turned green. A heartbeat monitor blinked to life. And within the center pod, a figure opened her eyes. Commander Alira Voss had not aged. She had not dreamed. She had only waited. Her first breath was calm. Her first words were a whisper. Is it time? The AI answered, the galaxy screams. Earth has been summoned. No ceremony followed. No speeches. Just action. In seconds, her officers awakened. Hundreds of Deathworlder soldiers, human, hybrid, cyber, enhanced, stood ready. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. The Rathburn's engines flared to life. One ship, one answer, one mission. And it was not alone. In the dark corners of space, more ships awoke. Fleets once hidden, squadrons once thought lost. Humanity had not vanished. They had simply gone silent, watching, waiting, letting the galaxy forget their name, because Deathworlders never fought for thanks. They fought to finish what others couldn't. At Unity Council headquarters, panic spread. Reports poured in. Zarn fleets moving again. Entire colonies vanished. The council begged for unity, but no one listened. Fear divided them faster than any enemy could. The diplomats called for peace talks. The generals knew better. The Zarn had no use for words. And then, without warning, every long-range scan in the core worlds picked up a ripple in space. A warp signature, not a fleet. A wave. Like a shock across the stars. It was the first sign a Deathworlder fleet had moved. And it didn't come from Earth. It came from nowhere. On board Rathburn, Commander Voss reviewed the reports. Images of dead planets, Zarn, biological data, population loss graphs. None of it moved her. What did move her was the voice message from Corella Prime. She played it again and again, until the last line repeated in the silent war room. If Earth still exists, we welcome fire more than extinction. Voss turned to her crew. Prepare the fleet. Activate full combat readiness. We respond not with mercy, we respond with steel. Her second-in-command, a half-cyber soldier named Drave, smiled coldly. So the galaxy forgot us? Voss nodded once, and let them remember. Outside, the stars grew darker, not because the sun dimmed, but because something massive moved between them. The Rathburn and its sister ships cloaked, ancient, weaponized with Earth's last surviving weapons, formed up and turned toward the galactic center. No declarations, no alliances, just steel and wrath. Because when all hope is lost, the Deathworlders don't come to save, they come to end. The colony world of Relkaravai was once a place of quiet skies and gentle sunrises. Its cities were carved from the crystal cliffs. Its people known not for war, but for music, knowledge, and peace. Now, those same cities were nothing but burned. Shadows, towering spires had collapsed into ash. Roads that once held laughter were filled with silence. And high above, the black ships of the Zarn Dominion hovered like vultures, absorbing the final traces of life. They didn't speak. They didn't threaten, they simply erased. It took them 12 hours to end Ariel Kara. No warning, no survivors. Just another world added to the Zarn's growing trail of destruction. The Unity Council didn't respond. They couldn't. Half their members had gone into hiding, and the rest were paralyzed by fear. Their fleets were scattered, their hope shattered. All they could do was send another weak signal into the stars, praying that anyone was still out there, but far beyond the Council's reach. The stars had already begun to shift. Inside the cold halls of the Rathburn, Commander Alira Voss stood silently at the observation deck. The planet's remains glowed below, its once beautiful surface now cracked and smoldering. Her face showed. No sadness, only calculation. She wasn't built for mourning. She was built to finish what others were too afraid to start. She turned to her crew. Target lock confirmed. Her weapons officer, a young synthetic soldier named Kale, nodded. Confirmed. Zarn core ship still in orbit. They've made no attempt to retreat. They don't see us as a threat. Good, Voss said. Let's teach them their first lesson. The Zarn mothership, 3 kilometers of biometal wrapped around a living consciousness, detected a minor pulse near its aft systems. A strange ripple in space. It was not familiar to their scanners. It did not match Council tech. It was dismissed. As debris, and then the sky tore open, out of subspace, emerged the Rathburn. Its hull glowing with centuries-old scars and weapons Earth had long outlawed. No fanfare, no announcement. It's just silent, cold arrival. The Zarn responded immediately. Drones deployed, shields activated, pulse cannons charged, but Voss didn't flinch. Release the hammer. Kale pressed the command. The first shot wasn't seen. It wasn't even heard. The Rathburn's primary weapon, a singularity warhead, wasn't designed to explode. It was designed to erase. A flash of light, a twist of gravity, and the Zarn ship's forward section simply ceased to exist. No fire, no debris. Just empty space where matter once lived. The second shot came a second later. Target, propulsion cores. Impact, total destabilization. The mothership began to tear apart from inside. Its structure unable to understand the violence it had just endured. The Zarn tried to retreat, but their engines were gone. Their command signals failed, their hivelinks fell silent, and for the first time in recorded galactic history, a Zarn ship ran. But Wrathborn didn't chase. Voss had already marked the next. Target. Leave it, she said. Let them return to their swarm. Let them carry the message back. Humanity has returned, and we are not here to negotiate. Across the bridge, her crew sat in silence. Not from fear, but respect. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. The mission was simple. Follow the distress signals. Erase the threat. Leave no enemies to rebuild. They were not a rescue team. They were the final response. In the following hours, reports from across the sector lit up. Unknown vessels detected. Zarn mothership destroyed in a single engagement. Possible Earth signature confirmation pending. The Unity Council reassembled in panic. This could spark an even larger war. One ambassador shouted, "We asked for help," another replied, "This is help. Just don't like the shape it wears." But in the shadows, a Tridax observer whispered what everyone feared most. Earth didn't return to save the galaxy. They returned to finish what we failed to stop. Back aboard the Wrathborn, a new signal had been detected. The world of Celerine was next to its planetary shields failing, its people already abandoning their homes. A Zarn fleet surrounded the system. Voss stared at the readings. Then she turned. "Takale, bring in the twins." Two massive dark ships uncloaked beside them, Myron Rain and Ghostspire, both crewed by second-gen Deathworlders. Cybernetically enhanced and born in deep training bunkers beneath Earth's oldest war academies. Together, they were the Triad of Wrath. 3 ships, hundreds of soldiers, enough firepower to level a moon. Voss issued one command. Happens when Earth stops watching. As the Deathworlder fleet moved toward Celerine, the Zarn tried something new. They opened a channel. A voice, cold and clicking, echoed across the comms. "You are not needed. You are from a forgotten past. Leave or be extinguished." Voss replied with no words, just coordinates. The coordinates of the last 20 planets Zarn had destroyed. The Zarn paused, and then, for the first time, they hesitated. But it was already too late. The Deathworlders had returned, and they didn't come to warn, they came to erase. The skies of Celerine burned blue as the Deathworlder fleet arrived, not with banners or warnings, but in perfect silence. Civilians on the surface, watching from broken cities and bunkers deep beneath the ground, could only stare at the shapes, cutting through the Sky 3 ships blacker than night, moving like blades across space. No music, no light shows, no speeches, just a feeling that something ancient, something final had come. And then the bombardment began. Above the planet, the Zarn fleet scrambled. Their ships, living constructs grown from organic tech, were fast and adaptive, but they weren't prepared for what the Deathworlders had brought. Earth's weapons weren't beautiful. They weren't clever. They were brutal, effective, and terrifying. Warped projectiles that split into antimatter fragments. Sonic penetrators that shredded bioholes at the molecular level. Pulse disruptors that turned communication into chaos. Zarn ships tried to evolve as they always had. They shifted, changed patterns, adapted mid-dash fight. It didn't matter. Ghostspire struck first, tearing straight through the lead Zarn frigate. No evasive maneuvers, no hesitation. Simply plowed through the ship, shields active, hull burning, until nothing was left but scattered debris. Iron Rain followed, dropping atmospheric drills onto the largest Zarn carrier. The drills pierced the ship like spears and detonated inside. The explosion didn't just kill the crew, erased them from sensors. Nothing organic remained. And then came the Wrathburn. Commander Alira Voss stood at the command rail, staring. At the Zarn's final line of defense, "They never learned fear," she said calmly. Let's teach them. Her ship's AI responded, voice emotionless, target locked, silence protocol active. A final warhead launched, this one carrying a message encoded in Earth's dead war language. As it struck the last Zarn ship, it didn't explode. It broadcast. Across the system, across the Zarn's shared biomind, across every enemy ship within range. A voice was heard. It wasn't angry, it wasn't loud. It was human and cold as steel. You are not the first. You will not be the last. But you are finished. The message shattered Zarn-link protocols. Their swarm structure fractured. Their fighters turned clumsy, confused, disconnected from the hive. And in that moment of weakness, the Deathworlders moved in merciless and efficient. There was no surrender. No survivors. Cello Raw-9 was free within 1 hour. From the moment the first shot was fired to the last Zarn scream in the aftermath. Something strange happened. The people of Celerenine emerged from hiding. They looked up at the black ships in orbit. They waited for orders, for occupation, for demands. But none came. No landing parties. No flags. The Deathworlders simply transmitted a single phrase, no debt. No rule, only justice. Then they left, just like that, vanished into the stars again, as if they were never there. But the message remained, and it spread like wildfire on the outer colony of Turek Station. Miners replayed the transmission over and over on the Trivian trade routes. It was sent between freighters. In the ruins of destroyed planets, survivors began to write it across walls. No debt, no rule. Only justice. The galaxy had begged for salvation. What they got instead was something better. Revenge. The Unity Council, desperate to maintain control, tried to spin the narrative. The Deathworlders are dangerous, they warned. Act without coordination. They are not part of the council. But no one cared. In fact, those very words became a reason to trust them, because the Deathworlders didn't ask for permission. They didn't negotiate for action. They saw a threat, and they destroyed it. For the people of the outer colonies, it made them heroes. For the Zarn, it made them death incarnate. In their hidden hive system, the Zarn Queen Corps replayed the Deathworlder attack again and again. The humans didn't follow any pattern. They used old tech, dead languages, weapons banned by every treaty, but they were efficient. Too efficient. The Queen had fought hundreds of species, but never one that fought like this. Because humans didn't fight to win, they fought to end. In deep space, aboard Rathburn, Voss sat in her private chamber reviewing the footage from Celerenine. She didn't flinch, she didn't smile, simply analyzed. We lost 2 forward drones, Kale reported. Minimal casualties. Target was neutralized. Voss nodded. Good. Begin the trace on the next signal. These worlds aren't burning randomly. There's a pattern. Already done, Kale replied. Next system, Varel Nexus. Population, 14 billion. No military. Voss stared at the star map. They'll be there soon. Kale hesitated, then asked the question no one had dared speak aloud. Do you think Earth knows we've awakened? Voss didn't answer right away. Then she looked out the window. No, but they will. And when they do, they'll either join us. I'll try to stop us. In the distance, a red sun lit the next battlefield, and the Deathworlders moved once more, not as kings, not as saviors, but as the final word written in steel. The Varel Nexus hung in space like a glowing jewel for planets circling a red sun, each filled with life, culture, and millions of voices. It was a system of learning, known for its science academies and history vaults. No weapons, no warships, only knowledge. It was also next on the Zarn's list. They came without warning. Zarn harvester ships blackened the sun as they entered orbit. Spines extended. Clouds of spores fell into the atmosphere. Within hours, whole cities went silent. The Viral government tried to negotiate, tried to buy time, offer surrender. But the Zarn didn't stop for words. They came only to consume. Yet just before the capital fell, the sky above them cracked with light. The Rathburn iron rain and Ghostspire dropped from warp and formation. Their arrival was like thunder that spoke no language, on the power. Civilians below saw 3 streaks of fire paint the sky, and a single shared thought took hold across every frightened heart. The Deathworlders came. Commander Alira Voss stood with arms folded, eyes fixed on the enemy fleet ahead. Kale whispered, "They've started absorbing the planet's upper atmosphere." Voss answered coldly, "Not for long." Across the deck, one of the officers blinked at her display. "Ma'am, we have something else. A second signal. Not XR'd. Not human." It was old buried forgotten coordinates. Voss stared at the readout. Inside the system's dead moon, the AI confirmed. Hidden structure detected. Ancient. Active. Voss narrowed her eyes. They're not just harvesting planets. They're looking for something. Before action, she ordered a 2-prong move. Ghostspire would handle the Zarn harvesters in orbit. Iron Rain would hold the upper system from Zarn. Reinforcements, and she would take Rathburn straight to the dead moon. Above Virel's skies, the battle exploded. Ghostspire swept through the enemy with deadly precision. Stealth cannons fired from within cloaking fields, leaving Zarn ships spinning in confusion before they burst into flame. Iron Rain laid mines through the asteroid belt, catching Zarn reinforcements in mid-warp. The sky was on fire, but it was beneath that fire, beneath the dead. Surface of the moon that a greater secret stirred. Rathburn hovered above the crater. Voss led the boarding team herself, descending into a broken shaft that shouldn't have existed. No markings, no energy signature, just silence. Until they reached the heart. It was a vault, locked in a stasis field. Older than any human technology, in the center floated a single black crystal pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat. Her AI tried to scan it. Failed. Tried again. Failed again. Then the system screamed. "Warning. Contagion signal. Unknown entity. Abort." But it was too late. Voss stared at it. Frozen because she understood something the AI didn't. This wasn't tech. This was memory, back on the Rathburn. As the team extracted the artifact, Kale received an alert, a transmission encrypted in Earth's pre-collapse military code, and it wasn't coming from Deathworlder ships. It was coming from Earth. Earth's command center. Buried beneath the red sands of New Moscow, it's been silent for 73 years, until now. A general stepped out of cryo, white uniform, scar across her face. Name, General Riven. Halleck. He stared at the live feed coming from the black crystal in Voss's hands. Activate Protocol Hades. The Wrath fleet is awake. And they've found the core. Back in orbit, the battle had ended. Zarn forces were gone. Virel Nexus was saved, but no one celebrated, because the sky had changed. A Scarthin. Black and growing was forming near the dead moon. Kale looked at it and whispered, "That's not from our weapons." Voss replied, voice lower than a whisper, "No, it's from before us." The artifact now stored in the containment room pulsed faster. Faint whispers filled the air. Not in any language, not in sound, but in thought. Voss heard something ancient, broken, angry. It wasn't just memory. It was a warning. The Deathworlders hadn't just returned to end the Zarn. They'd awakened something even the Zarn had feared. In deep Zarn territory. The Queen Core shrieked. Its drones went still. Its mind shook. Because the crystal was not of their kind. It was what hunted them. Long ago. Before the rise of empires. Before even Earth. Something forgotten. Something buried. And now. Thanks to Earth's wrath, fleet it was awake. The final report sent from the Rathburn. To Earth read only one line. We destroyed the enemy. But something else rose from the ashes. The artifact sat in a sealed chamber, deep within the armored hull of the Rathburn. No sound came from it, but the crew could feel it like a pressure in the air, like the room itself had begun to breathe. The black crystal pulsed softly, steadily, like a heartbeat echoing from a time no one remembered. Every system on the ship had begun acting strangely since its retrieval. Navigation scrambled at random. Weapon sensors glitched. The AI stuttered. Wasn't just interference. It was influence. Commander Alira Voss stood outside the containment field, her eyes fixed on the crystal. She hadn't slept since bringing it aboard. Her thoughts no longer felt like her own. Never been dead cities, black stars, voices whispering in a tongue that felt ancient and wrong. Yet still, she didn't flinch. Deep down, something told her the truth. This crystal wasn't just a relic. It was a message, and it was meant for humanity, back on Earth. Deep beneath the surface, in a chamber known only to a few. General Riven Halleck stared at the same energy readings broadcast by the Rathburn. His eyes were sunken, his face pale. Around him, the ancient systems of Earth's last command node hummed to life. Systems that hadn't activated in over 70 years. A scientist beside him whispered, "Sir, this signal matches pre-Earth full anomaly codes. Artifact designation, wound class. This isn't Zarn technology. Predates them." Halleck's hand tightened on the edge of the console. "We buried those files. We sealed that knowledge for a reason. But it's been found," the scientist replied. "And now it's awake again." Halleck turned. "Send a message to the Rathburn. One order. Do not engage the artifact. Do not experiment. Lock it. And if it tries to speak, do not listen." But it was too late. Alira Voss had already started. Listening, she stood alone with the artifact again, this time beyond the safety barrier. Her officers had tried to stop her. Kale had even drawn a weapon. But Voss had made herself clear. This is mine now. As she approached the crystal, a single word formed in her mind. Not in sound, not in code, but in memory. Remembrance. She staggered, her vision swam. Suddenly she was no longer on the ship. She stood in a ruined field, the sky burning green. Above her, metal giants marched in silence across a planet's broken spine. Towers fell like dust. And in the center of it, she saw herself, or something like her, a version of her, covered in black armor, standing beside a burning altar, holding the crystal and whispering, "The wound remembers." Voss snapped back to reality. Blood dripped from her nose. Her breath caught. In her throat, she looked around the room. The lights had dimmed. The ship had gone silent, in orbit over Virel Nexus. The ghost spire in Iron Rain picked up something strange. A new ripple in space, thick, oily, and cold. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a signal. It was a presence. Then the stars above the dead moon blinked and didn't return, as if something massive, something wrong, had moved into space and devoured. The light the Zarn felt it too, in their deepest hive minds. Across the web of their shared thoughts, fear crackled. This was not Earth. This was not war. This was something older, something they thought. Destroyed in the first burning. But now, it was stirring again because humans had touched the wound, and the wound did not forget. Kale stormed into the artifact chamber, weapon raised. "Commander, step away. The AI's failing. We're losing control of navigation." Voss turned slowly. Her eyes were darker than before, not corrupted. Not mind-controlled. Just aware. She held up a hand. Kale froze. Not by force, by instinct. She whispered, "It's not evil, Kale. It's not even angry. It's a warning." Kale shook his head. "Of what?" Voss looked out the viewport at the shifting stars. "Of what comes after us?" On Earth, Halleck's command center was in chaos. The Rathburn had gone dark. Its last transmission, a set of coordinates far beyond, charted space, and then silence. The AI inside Earth's core began to glitch. Old alerts classified. Ones flashed red. Wound class entity. Containment failure. Memory spiral breach level 3. Protocol Titanfall recommended. Halleck's voice broke as he gave the order. "Reactivate the original death protocol. Send the message across the network. If Voss doesn't stop, we will stop her." Get deep. In space, Rathburn was already moving. Its engines burned a path toward the ancient coordinates left by the artifact. Not running, not retreating, but returning. Because the thing inside the crystal was never meant to wake. but now that it had, it needed one thing: a human mind. And it had found the strongest one in the galaxy. Across the old defense grid of Earth, the war alarms that hadn't sounded in nearly a century now roared through every sealed vault and deep bunker. Systems buried beneath continents lit up. Aaye's long-kept in digital sleep began to stir. First message. Protocol Titanfall active. Deathworlder unit Wrathborn has deviated. At the center of New Moscow Command, General Riven Halleck watched the live map of known space. A blinking red dot moved through the edge of the galaxy faster than anything in standard warp, cutting across gravity fields like a blade through paper. It was Wrathborn. "She's not following council routes," said an intelligence officer. "Her signal is corrupted or redirected." "She's not corrupted," Halleck replied. "She's being called." The officer stared. "By what?" "Halleck. Didn't blink? Something older than us? Something we left buried because we feared it more than extinction?" Thousands of light years away, Wrathborn soared through dark space, silent and determined. No updates were sent to Earth, no orders received. Inside, Commander Alira Voss stood at her command post, her crew tense but loyal. They didn't understand where they were going, but they followed her anyway. In the sealed chamber below, the artifact still pulsed, but now it echoed with more than memory. It projected coordinates into Voss's thoughts. Coordinates no chart had ever shown. Systems, erased from galactic maps. Planets that no longer spun. Kale, her second in command, watched her with worry. "You're not the same," he said quietly, "since you touched it, since you heard its voice." "I'm more than I was," Voss replied. "Not a puppet. Not infected. Just aware. This crystal isn't our enemy, Kale. It's a message. It shows us what's coming. The Zarn aren't the threat. They're just the beginning." Back on Earth, Halleck had already made his choice. Deploy Hellpoint Fleet. He ordered, "Activate the Paladin Aegis. We'll intercept Wrathborn before she crosses the Expanse. If we fail to stop her there, she'll vanish into places even our maps don't dare name." "Sir," another general protested, "she saved 4 worlds. She ended 2 Zarn fleets. She's a hero," Halleck said. "Now she's something else." From beneath Titan's frozen crust, 6 ships began to rise, black and silver, older than anything in Earth's current navy. These weren't defense vessels. They were judgment. At their core flew the Sovereign Lance, captained by Admiral Rael Selena, man who had once trained Voss. And once feared her potential, she won't stop. Halleck warned Selene across the secure channel. Solin's reply was grim. "Then we won't either." Inside Wrathborn, the crew prepared for what Voss called the crossing. Coordinates pointed toward a system beyond the Tarsi's Valen area of space, considered cursed. Ships that entered didn't return. Scanners broke down. No species had ever mapped it successfully. Why go there? Kale asked her again. Voss showed him the projection burned into her thoughts. A spiral of dying stars, and at its center, shape, not a weapon, not a fleet, a being. "Because this is where it began," she said. "This is where the first wound was opened, and we must close it." As they neared the veil, a long-range alert sounded. Incoming warp signature, Earth origin, multiple class Omega ships. Kale froze. "They sent someone after us." Voss closed her eyes. "Not someone, everyone." The Sovereign Lance and the Hellpoint Fleet emerged from warp in front of Wrathborn, forming a wall of steel and power. Solin's voice crackled over the channel. "Alira, stand down. Come home. Whatever you found, it's not worth the galaxy." Voss stepped forward, face calm. "I'm not the danger, Admiral. The thing I'm trying to stop is you're compromised. That artifact is showing us what's coming. You think you're saving Earth? I'm trying to save everything." Solin paused. "Then prove it. Stand down. Let us retrieve it. Let Earth decide." Voss's eyes turned colder. Earth had its chance. The galaxy cried, and Earth turned inward. Came back. Not as diplomats, not as saviors. "We came back to finish what others were too afraid to face." Kale leaned. Closer, Commander. They'll open fire. No, she said. And she gave the command. Break through. The battle was brief, brutal, and without mercy. Rathburn didn't fire to kill Boot. She fought to escape. Her weapons disabled engines, jammed targeting systems, blinded sensors. Even Solon's elite ships found themselves scrambling to respond. And then she was gone. Into the veil, the stars behind her folded and vanished. The space around her bent, and Rathburn crossed the boundary between known and forgotten. Back on Earth, Halleck stared at the empty map. Solon's voice came through, filled with shock. She got through. I've never seen anyone move like that, not even during the Black Sieges. Halleck said nothing, then finally whispered, She's not coming. Back is she? No, Solon replied. She's going somewhere we can't follow. In the tar-sized veil, the Rathburn floated in silence. All systems flickered. Stars were. Wrong gravity pulled sideways. Time pulsed irregularly. And ahead of them was something that wasn't space, or matter, or machine. It looked like a scar. On reality itself, a great rift, and it pulsed like the artifact. Voss smiled faintly. We found the first wound. The tar-sized veil did not behave like space. It shimmered like oil across broken glass. Stars twisted into spirals. Light took too long to arrive. Shadows fell in directions that made no sense, and at the heart of it all was the wound. The Rathburn drifted toward it massive, powerful, and utterly silent. The rift ahead wasn't a hole or a gate. It was a scar in reality itself, blacker than black, like a memory the universe tried to forget. It pulsed in perfect rhythm with the crystal. Locked in the containment chamber below deck, Commander Alira Voss stood at the forward viewport, her face calm but her eyes distant. Around her, the crew stared in awe, confusion, and fear. Cale broke the silence. This place, it's not dead, it's alive. I can feel it watching us. Voss nodded slowly. We were never supposed to find this place, but someone left a key. Earth trained me to use it. The crew had stopped asking if she was still human. The truth was more complicated. Voss still looked. Humans still spoke like herself. But since retrieving the artifact, her presence had changed. She moved with quiet purpose. She reacted before danger arrived. She knew things the ship's AI hadn't calculated. She remembered worlds she'd never been to. And the longer they stayed in the veil, the more she understood. The wound wasn't made, it was opened. By something long before the Zarn. Before the Council, before Earth's rise, a war older than time, and something survived it. They reached the edge of the wound, in reality. Broke in a flash of impossible geometry, the Rathburn was no longer where it had been. Its systems blinked, reset, failed, and recovered. But outside, the ship, space had changed. They were inside a hollow void, silent, endless, filled with floating fragments of dead civilizations. Bits of structures, towers, weapons, bones, whole worlds shattered and scattered, caught in slow orbits around. The scar, it was a graveyard. Cale whispered, What is this? Voss responded in a voice not fully her own. This is where the first war ended, where the builders fell, where the first gods bled. The artifact pulsed harder, and a voice filled the ship not overcomes. Not through air, directly into their minds. It didn't speak words, it spoke truths. You are not the first to fight. You are not the first to fall. But you are the last to arrive before it wakes again. A massive structure loomed in the dark, ahead of black. Floating construct the size of a moon. It had no lights, no engines. Motion, but it breathed. Voss ordered a landing. The crew hesitated. Cale stepped forward. Commander, if we go down there, we may never come back. She looked at him. If we don't go, the galaxy might not survive what comes next. They descended into the structure. It was colder than space. Walls pulsed like old flesh. Doors opened not by force, but recognition. The artifact floated beside Voss now. It's no longer needing containment. It guided her through. Empty halls of forgotten design, past murals that showed the universe's birth. In its corruption, at the center of the temple-like interior, they found it. A throne of broken metal and bone, and on it, a shape shackled, ancient and silent, not alive. It's not dead. Kale stared at it, voice shaking. What is that? Was stepped forward, she answered in a whisper. The last wound-bearer. It held the seal. Until now, the crystal floated from her hands. It locked into the shape's chest, and suddenly, everything changed. The ship shook, the veil screamed, the stars outside twisted violently, and the being opened its eyes. It did not attack, it did not move. It simply spoke once in a voice that tore through dimensions. I remember, all across the galaxy something rippled. Zarn drones fell from the sky. Screaming, council satellites flickered and died. Earth's core AI reset itself, purging old codes, then broadcast one final alert. The wound is awake. Inside the throne chamber, Voss stood still. The ancient being stared at her. She wasn't afraid, because she understood now. The Zarn weren't the main threat. They were running. From this, the true enemy hadn't arrived yet. But now that the wound had opened it, would. The galaxy held its breath. On Earth, the Council's emergency chambers were silent. Every AI node, every Starlink, every deep sensor relay pointed toward one point in space. The Tarsi's veil, and something monstrous was pulsing. Through it, inside the throne chamber of the forgotten construct, Commander Alira Voss stood before the wound-bearer. Its form was still unmoving, but the artifact she had carried now blazed like a miniature star, burning above its chest. It was no longer just a crystal. It was a signal beacon, one that pulsed in time with the very bones of the universe. Kale stared in horror. What have we done? Voss spoke without blinking. We didn't unleash it. We responded to it. This was always going to happen. Humanity was chosen not because we're wise or kind, but because we never stop fighting. Outside, Rathburn detected the first anomaly. A rift, not the wound. But something new cracked open near the edge of the veil. At first, it was just darkness. Then, shape. Massive. Endless. Unfurling from the rip like a serpent made of gravity. In time, its body shimmered with starlight, yet absorbed all light. Its eyes were like twin collapsing galaxies. The Unmaker had returned. The wound wasn't just a prison, it was a seal. The Deathworlders had arrived not to break it, but to stand guard over it. And now, that burden fell to Voss. All over the ship, lights flickered, gravity reversed. The crew floated in 0G as space bent around them. Kale called out, "Commander, it's breaking through. This isn't like the Zarn. This thing isn't bound by matter." Voss stepped forward. No, it's bound by memory. And that's what it's trying to erase. She closed her eyes. Images filled her thoughts, Earth's burning skies, forgotten ruins, lost empires. Every fallen world had one thing in common. The presence of this creature in their final days. It was the devourer of thought, the silencer of history. And now, it was here. On Earth, the High Command issued their last order. All available fleets to Rathburn. Final defense line. No retreat. But everyone knew. They wouldn't arrive in time. Only one ship stood between the galaxy and the end. Voss turned to Kale. Get everyone out. Launch the crew in escape pods. Lock coordinates to fallback zones. If we fail, tell Earth to forget this place. Brace it again. Kale shook his head. I'm not leaving you. You have two, she said, her voice quiet. Guess what's about to happen? Only I can survive it. She looked down at her hands. They were glowing, not with fire, but with memory. The artifact had fused with her. The wound-bearer had chosen its successor. The Unmaker surged forward, massive, twisting, shrieking in a sound no ear could hear. It reached toward Rathburn, seeking to unmake it, to pull it into forgetting, and Voss answered. She stepped into the beam room, override codes flashing around her. She rerouted every ounce of ship energy warp cores, reactors, weapons into One streamed into herself as the Unmaker roared. She launched forward. Not in a ship, but as light as fire. Her body dissolved into radiance merged with energy. With memory, with the seal, she flew straight into the wound, and for a moment, the galaxy went dark. Then, a pulse, a heartbeat across the stars. All across known space, ships halted. Even time seemed to stagger, and then the light turned. The rift sealed, the wound closed, and the Unmaker was gone. Rathburn floated silently, empty, damaged, but alive. Kale sat alone in the command chair, eyes closed. Goodbye, Alira. Earth's sensors confirmed it. The threat was gone. The veil calmed. The Tarsi's wound was sealed once more, this time not by a forgotten machine, but by a human, a Deathworlder, the last line of defense, in time. They built a memorial at the edge. Of the veil, no statue, just a beacon, and a recording of Voss's last words. The universe forgets, but we remember. We fight not because we must, but because someone must. If the wound opens again, if the stars cry out once more, humanity will answer.